You have spent years bending yourself into uncomfortable shapes just to keep them comfortable. You've memorized their moods, their sudden shifts, their unspoken demands. And still, it was never quite enough. Not because you failed, but because the entire game was rigged from day one. What if I told you that one single word, paired with one quiet action, completely shatters their illusion? What comes next will change how you see yourself forever. Let's get one thing straight before we go deeper. You are not broken for surviving this. You were not crazy for questioning your own reality. They trained you to doubt your instincts. They fed you just enough warmth to keep you tethered, then pulled away the moment you reached for stability. It feels like walking on thin ice that never cracks, just sinks slowly beneath you. But that ice is theirs. And it was never meant to hold you anyway. There is a reason their behavior has always felt so exhausting. You weren't just managing a difficult personality. You were carrying a psychological black hole that swallowed every ounce of light you offered. Love became a transaction. Apologies became traps. Peace became something you had to purchase with your own silence. And somewhere along the way, you forgot what your own voice actually sounded like. I see how tired you are. It's okay. I want you to imagine something different. Picture the moment you finally stop performing for them. The moment you drop the heavy script they handed you. You don't raise your voice. You don't plead. You don't explain yourself anymore. You just speak one word into the room and watch the atmosphere shift instantly. It isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It's just quiet, unshakable truth. And for them, it tastes like absolute poison. The word is enough. It doesn't carry anger. It just carries finality. When you say it, you are not asking permission. You are drawing a hard line. And the action is simple. You do not wait for their reaction. You simply turn and leave. You do not explain yourself. You just step out of the room and close the door. That exact combination breaks their nervous system. It triggers instant, visceral rejection. They will tell you that you're being cold. They will say you've changed, that you're abandoning them, that you're suddenly cruel. Let them speak. Let the words hang in the air without your rescue. You are not abandoning them. You are finally returning to yourself. The cruelty was never yours. The abandonment happened the first day they treated your humanity as optional. You're just choosing a different direction now. Think about every time you tried to make them understand your pain. You handed them your wounds. You laid them bare. You waited for them to see you, to hold you, to acknowledge the damage. And instead, they used your vulnerability as ammunition. They twisted your tears into proof of your instability. But what if the real power wasn't in making them understand? What if the real power was realizing they never will, and letting go? That's when the shift begins. You stop trying to explain your worth to someone whose entire identity depends on your lack of it. You stop negotiating for basic respect. You stop auditing your own words before you speak, terrified of setting them off. You realize that your silence is no longer a place of surrender. It's a sanctuary. And the distance you create is not punishment. It's preservation. You're finally protecting what's left. You've probably wondered if they actually care, or if it's all just performance. Here's the uncomfortable truth you already know. They don't miss you. They miss what you provided. They miss the supply, the validation, the convenient mirror that reflected only their best angles. When you stop playing the mirror, the reflection shatters. And they panic. Not because they love you, but because their carefully constructed facade just cracked wide open. So let's step into the mechanics of it. Let's pull back the curtain and watch what happens when you finally refuse the role they cast for you. This isn't about revenge. It isn't about winning. It's about survival. It's about reclaiming the ground beneath your feet. And once you understand exactly why this specific word and action triggers such visceral rejection in them, you will never apologize for choosing peace again. To understand why this lands so violently in their system, you have to look at what they're running from. Beneath the confidence, beneath the charm and the sharp edges, there is a terrified child who believes they are fundamentally unlovable. Not a metaphor. A structural fracture. Every interaction becomes a performance designed to hide that fracture. When you disrupt the performance, they don't just feel annoyed. They feel exposed. And exposure feels like suffocation. Their entire psychological architecture relies on external validation. Think of it like a building with no foundation, held up by scaffolding you were forced to carry. As long as you keep adjusting to their demands, the structure stands. The moment you withdraw your energy, the scaffolding shakes. And they feel that tremor in their bones. It isn't anger you're seeing. It's pure panic. They are watching their reality collapse because you stopped propping it up. You might notice them trying to escalate. They'll switch tactics rapidly. 1 minute they're cold. The next they're overly sweet. Then they're playing the victim. Then they're lashing out. It looks chaotic, but it's highly calculated. They are throwing everything against the wall, desperate to find the lever that makes you move again. But you aren't moving. And that stillness is what triggers the sickness. Because stillness cannot be controlled. Here is what happens inside their nervous system when you finally speak that word and step back. Their brain registers a threat. Not to their safety, but to their identity. Their self-worth was outsourced to you, to your reactions, to your compliance. When you withhold it, they experience it as emotional starvation. The body reacts literally. The stomach tightens. The breath shortens. They feel physically repulsed because their survival mechanism just short-circuited. They have spent a lifetime treating empathy as a currency to be spent, not a connection to be shared. So when you remove yourself from the equation, they don't process grief. They process loss of control. It feels like nausea because their entire emotional metabolism runs on manipulation. Healthy boundaries taste like poison to a system built on toxicity. They don't know how to digest respect that doesn't come with strings attached. It simply makes them sick. You've likely been told you're the sensitive one, that you overreact, that you take things too seriously. But what if the sensitivity was your radar finally pinging correctly? You weren't imagining the shifts in tone. You weren't inventing the sudden coldness. You were tracking micro-expressions of contempt that your nervous system recognized as danger. Your body was trying to warn you long before your mind caught up. You were right to listen. Let's talk about the mirror for a second. Narcissists don't see you as a separate person. They see you as an extension, a tool, a background character in their personal documentary. When you assert your independence, you're not just setting a boundary. You're declaring personhood. And that declaration is unbearable. It forces them to confront the fact that you exist outside of their narrative. And they have no script for that. The sickness you witness isn't random. It's physiological rejection. When a predator loses its prey, the nervous system doesn't just get mad. It dysregulates. They might pace. They might stare. They might say things they instantly regret. But none of it is about repair. It's about recalibration. They're scrambling to find a new frequency to hook into. And your indifference is static. It's a dead signal. They can't broadcast through you anymore. This is where survivors get tripped up. You feel a flicker of guilt. You wonder if you push too hard, if you should apologize, if you can just go back to how things were. Don't. That guilt was planted inside you like a tripwire. It was never yours to carry. It was engineered to keep you compliant. Recognize it for what it is. A reflex, not a truth. And watch it lose its power the moment you stop obeying it. The beauty of this dynamic is that it requires zero theatrics. You don't need to win an argument. You don't need to prove a point. You just need to stop participating in the illusion. Say the word. Take the action. Let the space between you become a wall instead of a bridge. And watch how quickly their desperation turns inward. You didn't do anything cruel. You just stopped feeding the machine. That's all it ever needed. The turning point never arrives with fireworks. It happens in a quiet kitchen on a Tuesday evening. They say something meant to provoke you, just like always. But this time, you don't rise. You don't brace. You look at them, steady and unblinking, and you say the word. Just that one word. And then you do what you promised yourself you would do. You walk toward the door. Not dramatically. Just completely. And the room changes temperature. They try to stop you. The voice changes pitch instantly. It drops into a tone you recognize. The manufactured concern. The sudden urgency. They want you to look back. They need the eye contact to confirm they still have the remote control. But you keep walking. The footsteps don't slow down. The hand doesn't reach for the doorknob. You are moving on pure instinct, finally trusting yourself over the performance. It feels like breathing for the first time in years. Behind you, the mask fractures. You hear it before you see it. The rapid shift from pleading to sharp commands. The sudden demand for an explanation. The desperate attempt to drag you back into the cycle. But you aren't in the cycle anymore. You're outside it, watching it spin on its own axis. And that perspective is intoxicating. You realize how much energy you wasted trying to fix something that was never broken, just abandoned. Here is the plot twist you weren't expecting. The moment you step away, they don't magically transform into someone self-aware. They don't wake up and realize their mistakes. Instead, they reveal exactly who they are without the distraction of your presence. You see the frantic grasping for attention elsewhere. You hear the sudden need to rewrite history. The absence of your energy forces them to confront the void they've been carrying all along. It's strange how clarity arrives only when you're no longer drowning in it. You start noticing patterns you couldn't see before. The way they manufactured crises to keep you occupied. The subtle put-downs disguised as jokes. The way they hoarded affection and dispensed it only when you stepped out of line. None of it was about love. It was about management. And management requires compliance. You just stopped complying. You might feel a sudden surge of grief. Don't fight it. That grief isn't for them. It's for the person you had to abandon to keep the peace. It's for the years of conversations you swallowed. The dreams you shelved. The boundaries you erased. Let yourself mourn that version of you. Cry for her. Sit with the weight of what was stolen. But remember this. You didn't lose her. You just finally made room for her to return. The dynamic shifts so quietly it almost goes unnoticed. They begin testing other boundaries, trying to find a crack in your resolve. They might reach out through mutual friends. They might post vague updates online. They might try to bait you into reacting one last time. You see it all, but you don't bite. You've stopped mistaking their chaos for intimacy. You've learned the difference between noise and truth. And truth doesn't scream. There will be days you doubt yourself. Of course there will. Healing is not a straight line. It's a series of forward steps interrupted by sudden waves of memory. On those days, go back to the feeling of that kitchen. The weight leaving your shoulders. The exact moment you realized you were no longer responsible for their emotional weather. Hold that moment. Replay it. It's your anchor. It proves you already have the strength you've been begging for. The world outside that dynamic is so much larger than you ever realized. You'll rediscover hobbies you buried. Friendships you quietly neglected. Passions you convinced yourself you didn't deserve. Life will start feeling slower, richer, more textured. You'll notice colors again. You'll taste food without anxiety. You'll hear music without searching for hidden threats. Normalcy isn't boring. It's revolutionary after walking on eggshells. The real turning point isn't the day you leave. It's the day you realize you're allowed to stay gone. That permission is everything. It's the difference between pausing the cycle and shattering it. You aren't taking a break to see if they'll change. You're building a new life where that old dynamic simply doesn't exist anymore. The space between you isn't empty. It's fertile ground. And you're finally the one deciding what grows. The collapse happens slowly, then all at once. They lose the primary source of their regulation. The scripts stop working. The usual maneuvers fall flat against your quiet distance. They start cycling through old tactics faster, more frantically, as if increasing the volume will somehow fix the broken signal. It doesn't. It only exhausts them. You're watching a machine sputter because it ran out of the only fuel it ever understood. They will try to paint you as the villain. It's automatic. It's defensive. They need a reason for the rupture that doesn't involve their own emptiness. So they rewrite history. They share half-truths with anyone who will listen. They position themselves as the wounded party. And you might hear the rumors. You might feel the sting of their distortion. But you already know what really happened. And your peace doesn't require their permission to survive. Behind closed doors, the reality catches up with them. The sudden stillness in their life becomes deafening. They start feeling the very emotions they forced you to carry. Loneliness. Uncertainty. The heavy weight of being truly seen and found lacking. It settles in the chest like a stone. They don't process it healthily. They deflect. They rage. They search for a replacement. But the new mirror never fits quite right. You'll notice the subtle shifts in their digital footprint. The sudden bursts of positivity that feel rehearsed. The vague posts about healing that don't match their actions. The desperate attempts to appear completely unbothered. Unbothered people don't broadcast. They just live. Their need to perform normalcy is just another symptom of the internal fracture. They're trying to convince the world because they can't convince themselves. There is no triumphant moment where they finally break down and apologize sincerely. If you're waiting for that, you're waiting for a ghost. The accountability you seek will never come from them. It has to come from you. You have to be the one to close the loop. You have to accept that their inability to reflect is their burden, not your failure. Let that truth land heavily. It's liberating even when it hurts. The consequences ripple outward. Mutual connections start choosing sides, usually based on who offers the most convenient narrative. Some will drift away. Some will stay loyal to the dysfunction. Let them go. Their exit is just another boundary being honored. You're not losing friends. You're shedding dead weight. The people meant for your healing will find their way back. The ones meant to leave will disappear quietly. Trust the filter. Your nervous system will finally begin to decompress. The chronic tension that lived in your jaw, your shoulders, your sleep schedule starts to dissolve. You'll catch yourself taking deeper breaths without thinking about it. The startle response fades. The constant scanning of the room stops. It feels strange at first, almost disorienting. That's what peace does to trauma survivors. It feels unfamiliar until your body learns it's safe to rest. They might circle back eventually. The hoovering phase always arrives when they've exhausted new sources. They'll appear casual. They'll act as if no time has passed. They'll offer you a carefully curated version of remorse. Do not mistake performance for progress. The cycle doesn't break because they're tired. It breaks because you finally understand the mechanics of the wheel. And once you understand it, you can step off. This is where the real work begins. Not fixing them. Fixing the part of you that still believes you need their approval to be whole. That belief is a ghost. It's a leftover echo from years of gaslighting. You have to sit with the discomfort of your own worthiness without external validation. It will feel lonely at first, but it won't feel heavy anymore. That's the difference between surviving someone and actually reclaiming yourself. The collapse is theirs to manage. The healing is yours to claim. They don't get to write your ending. They don't get to dictate your recovery. You've already paid the price for their dysfunction. You don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them your silence. You owe yourself the freedom to walk away and never look back. That isn't cruelty. That's justice. And it's long overdue for you both. Let's be clear about what this actually means for your future. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. Every moment you spent navigating their maze taught you something vital. You learned how to read a room. You learned how to spot manipulation before it takes root. You learned the exact cost of abandoning your own truth. Those aren't scars. They're armor. And you get to wear them proudly now. You will have days where you question if it was worth the silence. If it was worth the loneliness. If walking away cost you more than staying ever did. Sit with that doubt. Don't run from it. It's just the echo of an old habit trying to survive in a new environment. Remind yourself what staying actually costs you. Your mind. Your body. Your future. The price of leaving is temporary. The price of staying is eternal. The world outside that dynamic is so much larger than you ever realized. You'll rediscover hobbies you buried. Friendships you quietly neglected. Passions you convinced yourself you didn't deserve. Life will start feeling slower, richer, more textured. You'll notice colors again. You'll taste food without anxiety. You'll hear music without searching for hidden threats. Normalcy isn't boring. It's revolutionary after walking on eggshells. Healing isn't about forgetting what actually happened to you. It's about removing the power that memory holds over your daily routine. You'll still remember the lies. You'll still feel the phantom weight of their expectations. But you won't carry it like a heavy pack anymore. You'll set it down carefully. You'll walk away from it completely. And you'll keep moving, lighter each day, until the past is just history, not your address. You don't need their closure to begin your life again. Closure is never something they willingly hand you. It's something you quietly build in the moments you choose yourself. It's the coffee you drink without checking your phone. It's the novel you finish without guilt. It's the morning you wake up and realize you didn't dream about them. Those small, ordinary victories are your actual triumphs. Collect them. Guard them. There will be people who tell you to forgive them for the sake of your peace. Listen carefully before you nod. Forgiveness is not a requirement for freedom. You don't owe them absolution to move forward. You just need to stop letting their shadow dictate your steps. You can wish someone well from a distance while keeping your door firmly locked. That isn't bitterness. That's wisdom. And wisdom protects what matters most. Look at how far you've already come. You survived the confusion. You survived the silence. You survived the constant second-guessing of your own reality. You didn't break even when they tried to fracture you. You bent, you weathered the storm, and you eventually stood back up on your own 2 feet. That is not luck. That is resilience forged in fire. And you get to carry it into every room you walk into from this moment forward. The life you're building now doesn't require your constant performance. It doesn't demand that you shrink to make others comfortable. It invites you to take up space, to speak your truth, to set boundaries without apology, to walk away when the cost of staying becomes too high. You are no longer auditioning for love in spaces that were never designed to hold you. You're finally coming home to yourself. Keep going. Keep choosing the quiet exit over the loud drama. Keep choosing your peace over their panic. Keep choosing the truth over the comfortable lie. You have already survived the worst part. The heaviest chapter is closed. The pages ahead are blank, yes, but that's exactly where freedom lives. Write your next lines in bold ink. Let them be clear. Let them be yours. The pen has always been in your hand. You are not broken. You were never the actual problem. You were simply too bright for a room built entirely on manufactured shadows. Say the word. Take the quiet action. Walk away without looking back. And let them choke on the heavy silence they spent a lifetime manufacturing. The world is wider than you remember. Your life is finally waiting. And you are, without a single doubt, completely and undeniably free.